Good morning. My name is Joe Scarice, co-founder and co-host of the Creative Burst Strategies podcast. I'm really happy to co-host this podcast live at the TCS rooftop deck down in 2nd and Chestnut every second Saturday of the month. We're going to provide education, networking, and strategy. And our goals here today is to discuss the Delaware market, which is something I wanted to tie into, as well as the Delaware REIA with Bob Warbuton. And Bob, thanks for coming out this morning. But I want to give special thanks to our social media co-founder of this podcast, Mr. Yarl Perkins of Perkatech, who provides all the social media architecture, strategy, and design to our podcast that's provided every Sunday morning live at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the podcast as well as Clubhouse. And I want to just briefly go over our upcoming events that we traditionally have every month. Second Monday of the month, we are always in Philadelphia, same place here at TCS Rooftop Deck. Second Thursday, we're in Harrisburg at the Red Lion Hotel in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Second Wednesday of the month, we're in Lehigh Valley at the Fegley's Bethlehem Brewworks. And then finally, we're at the third Thursday of the month in North Jersey at the City Smoke House, City Rub, downtown Ironbound, Newark, New Jersey. So, Bob, thanks for coming out today.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
We were having a kind of great pre-discussion to the discussion before we started the podcast this morning.
We should have recorded that.
I know. Well, some of us would get in trouble, but you know, why don't we get a little background on you first?
Sure.
And then tie it into the DELREIA and lead it up to the DELREIA.
Gotcha. Okay, so I have recently taken over DELREIA, which stands for Delaware Real Estate Investors Association, which was started in 2010 by a good friend of mine named Mike Ferris. I was his first guest back then. He was holding events in Delaware, in Newcastle County, Delaware. We only got 3 counties, Kent, Sussex, and Newcastle. He started off there. I was his first speaker. We talked about land trust back then, and he grew it to with subgroups in Kent and Sussex, which are the lower counties, and I helped him with a coaching program, and unfortunately, tragically passed away a couple years ago. DELREIA was in limbo. I volunteered to just kind of keep it afloat, really. We were just running, hosting meetings. The estate allowed us to do that, but it became time where they wanted to transition, and I was able to purchase DELREIA. But that is just started officially in the end of August. We had our first meeting in September, and we've been doing it monthly. We have a great organization. It's just growing. We host our monthly meetings at the Chase Center on the riverfront in Wilmington. It's a great conference center, and the room is more not like a hotel room. It's more like a flashbacks to if you went to college, like a level 1 psychology class where it's an auditorium style. So that's what we got going on. We host those every once a month. They're free to first-time guests. You can get on our DELREIA Facebook group and learn more about that. Me personally, I've been investing for quite some time. I bought my first property in 1991, December 31st, which was my residence in Wilmington. And as I moved on and bought more properties, I've kept that as a rental. And as a matter of fact, we just got that renovated and put on the market. So my business is USA House Buyers, which is a fix and flip and a wholesaling company, and then I also have a large portfolio of rental properties, mostly single family, some small triplexes and fourplexes throughout Delaware. I do fix and flip and wholesaling throughout Delaware and Delaware County. So that's a little bit about what I do.
So we were talking about the market. And Delaware has so many, being a small state, only 3 counties, it definitely has a different market outlook and trend to each county almost. It's very vast differences. From your perspective on the ground, how would you characterize Delaware's real estate market entering 2026? Growth, stabilization, or selective opportunity? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it is true that, like most states, and Delaware too, even though we are small, there's vast differences in three little counties. You could drive from Claymont to Fenwick Island in 2 hours, and it's completely different. Lower Delaware, Sussex County, the western part's more rural. The eastern part are the beaches, so they're completely different. And Kent County is our capital area. It's kind of rural, and Newcastle County is more suburban, and then also we have a smaller city, Wilmington there. So they are dramatically different. Like most markets, we saw big increases in values and rents over the last 5 years, and now we're starting to see that stabilize a little bit. The one thing about, and I've been investing for 20, 30 years, one thing we have seen is that we haven't seen the dramatic highs and lows. Like
it's very stable.
Well, yeah, we saw really good growth, but going back to 2000, the mortgage crisis back in 2008, 9, 10, where in 6 and 7 I would go to conferences around the country and be completely jealous of some of these investors that in Florida, Vegas, Arizona, California, where they were just the run-ups. They were tripping over themselves and making unbelievable increases before they even fixed the flip. Where we were a little bit more moderately, increasing with our values. But in turn point, when the market did crash, they saw unbelievable crashes where our curve was a little bit flatter. So it's a little bit more conservative market, which is good.
Which ones do you see outperforming and which are cooling in your eyes?
Which what? I'm sorry?
Like you see like some areas within Delaware that,
sure.
Which what markets there are outperforming right now that you see going over the next 12 months? And which ones do you see cooling off a little bit, kind of settling out?
Yeah, the parts of Newcastle County, which is the northern market, and the beaches are always hot. The beaches, there's just lack of inventory. There's only 30 miles of beaches, and that attracts largely, we're up here in Philadelphia today, so even though we're only 20 minutes from the Delaware border, people up here are all Jersey Shore. I love the Jersey Shore too, but most of them don't even know we have beaches in Delaware. Most of the Delaware beaches are, of course, people from Delaware, but it's really heavy on the Washington, D.C. market.
Yeah.
So that area is always booming. Newcastle County is doing well, especially the northern part, the suburban part. We're seeing good growth in the city also. Western Sussex, which is more rural. I mean, one of the other things everybody thinks of Delaware is corporate, chemicals, and chickens. Those are our big C's. We have a huge corporate in Newcastle County, Wilmington, chemicals, the home of DuPont, and the chickens, which are down in lower Delaware. So that's kind of cooled off. It's a little bit more rural, and Kent County is a little bit more stabilized and stagnant. So
some major trends that you're seeing in Delaware right now: rent growth, tenant demand, pricing pressure, inventory shifts. How do you see these compare to surrounding markets like PA, New Jersey, and Maryland? And we were specifically talking about a very specific town, Claymont. Like I find it to be like this hidden little gem suburb that should be in Delco, but it's not. It's in Delaware. It has that Delco vibe of outside of Philadelphia. What's your thoughts about comparatives to PA, Maryland right now, and Delaware, versus Delaware, and like markets like Claymont and surrounding area?
That is interesting. Claymont it does remind me more. It's a little village. It does have that lower Delco feel to it. Some of the little townships and boroughs just over the border, probably because it does border the state line. Like it butts right up against the state line, and then goes into Upper Chichester, Marcus Hook, and those areas. So it is really almost a part of lower Delco. It's an older area. It's a lot of individually built houses. But it's a good blue collar neighborhood. Our market, just like most, it's starting to stabilize now. We saw massive increases in values, rents have increased, and we're starting to stabilize a little bit. In the suburban areas in Newcastle County, for example, North Wilmington, which is a suburban area of Wilmington. Mm-hmm. So we have the city and then we have the suburbs, but we have most of the county, your mailing address will be Wilmington, but you're not in the city. So, and differences, we'll talk about that coming up, but if you're under 500,000 and it's a good product, we're seeing those properties really going well. We're seeing minor bidding wars still on those. The post 700,000, which maybe in some parts of Delaware County and Montgomery and Chester, that's just an average house. Well, that's a pretty high-end house in Delaware. Those are on the market a little bit longer. It's a slower demand for those houses.
So are you seeing rent growth, or is it really not as much because it's really a flipping state right now still? I mean, like, you know, when you're renovating this house, like the house that you're renovating, you're not renovating at to hold for rental. So most people that are getting into the investment space in Delaware, in the suburbs at least, for the most part, their end game is not really the debt service, right? It's really the flip, right? So like, because is there that tenant demand?
Sure. For example, Claymont, yeah, there's townhouses. I mean, you know, the biggest, and I do both. When I look at a property, you know, I look at it as 3 exit strategies. What am I going to do with it when I get it under contract? Am I going to fix and flip it? Am I going to wholesale it? Or am I going to keep it as my rental portfolio? Me personally, and a lot of other investors feel the same way, is, you know, we're obviously, you know, we just, this house is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath. We just sold another 2.5 colonial, you know, 2,300 square feet. Those aren't good rentals. I mean, they're not going to cash flow.
They're not going to cash flow.
Yeah, so we're liking in Wilmington townhouses, you know, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, but also, you know, if we can get a ranch, I love a 1.5, 3.2 ranch for rentals. You know, a couple years ago, I was able to get a lot more of those. Those values have gone up dramatically. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's both a strong rental and a strong flipping.
So how do you see interest rates, insurance costs, and property taxes, because the new governor is obviously talking about a lot of tax movement, impacting investor decision making in Delaware going into 26?
Yeah, in taxes has been property taxes. Delaware has always been one of the lowest property tax states in the Union, specifically compared to New Jersey and Pennsylvania. It's one of the advantages. But we haven't had a reassessment since, I think, 1992. Now, taxes have gone up based on those assessed values, but you know, when I was you know, learning at real estate in different areas, it would say, well, look at the tax assessed value, and I would look at the tax assessed value. It says it's worth 50, you know, it says 52,000, but the house is worth, you know, 300. So we learned very quickly in Delaware to throw that out the window, because that assessment was, you know, 40 some years ago. So this is the first time in 40 some years where they've went through this massive, hired this outside company to reassess the whole state, and it's, I'll be honest, been a disaster. It's had, you know, it's supposed to be net neutral, tax revenue neutral, where some were supposed to go up and some gone down, and some of mine have done that, but we're seeing huge backlashes because some values have gone up dramatically. So how that has affected our buy and hold investors, it really hasn't affected the flippers as much. I mean, sure, it's going to be, the buyer's not going to be able to afford as much, but we're factoring it in. But it's more important to our buy and hold investors in Delaware, because we're seeing houses not cash flow as much. Insurances are going up, and if your taxes are going up dramatically, we're seeing older, you know, more seasoned investors, you know, say, hey, listen, I've seen massive increases in our values over the last 5 years. The houses aren't cash flowing like they used to. You know, why don't we take our money off the table and let's cash out and liquidate our portfolios, you know, look at something else, maybe, you know, 1031 into something bigger. But we're still seeing newer investors come in, but they're not worried about cash flow as much. They're thinking more, and I think this is probably a better strategy long term, is appreciation. So if you're buying in good solid areas, not war zones, you're going to see appreciation, but don't worry about the cash flow as much, because it's not going to happen right now.
You're a mentor, you run a REIA. Buyer buys a property, hey, I'm going to do my first flip. Tax assessment was $56,000, but they're going to flip it for $325,000. Whatever they're buying it for and renovating, they're going to make money. Is there some way for that flipper to get educated real quick at what that tax impact is going to look like when it reassesses for the person? Because, you know, right now the tax base of buying that property at whatever they bought it at was obviously at a discount. How should they handle that, knowing that there's an assessment down the road, and when they sell that property for $350,000, say hypothetically, is there a way to figure out what the new assessed tax impact is going to be when that's sold to that next individual as an enhanced stabilized property? That's my question. Like,
yeah,
you bought a 5-1, right? and you renovated it into a 4.2 and a half.
4.2
right?
and a half, yep.
So it's obviously a much different, it's completely different. You put 150 grand into the place, etc. Are you able to pinpoint what that tax is going to look like on for the seller, to the buyer that you're selling to?
Well, the good news is this, like it or hate it, what happened to your tax assessment, that's done. And that was completed last year.
Okay, so then it's all up to date.
Yeah, and they're not
bad or ugly.
I've heard of some townships and areas in Pennsylvania where it gets assessed after each sale. Which is nice, but then you could, if one house is, getting sold 3 or 4 times, their tax is going to be dramatically higher than the neighbor who's owned it for 50 years. It's tough. I don't envy them to try to figure out the best way to do it, but it's done. It's not going to happen again. So when we sell a house today, the buyer is going to know, unless there's a discount.
They know what the tax is.
That tax is not changing anytime soon.
They just came within a question within a question.
Yeah. I mean, there's ways to appeal, and we're in the middle of appealing. I just can't imagine how much this is costing us, and I'm wondering, is it even worth it because of all the energy and time and money they put into it and the appeals and stuff. So the good news is it's done. Like it or hate it, you can predict, and what's going to happen, and the buyers can predict.
Yeah. So where's the deal flow actually coming from today in Delaware? The MLS, off market, wholesalers, agents, probate, tired landlords, property management companies. Where are you seeing the best deals coming your way, or for your clients, or your circle of influence?
Yeah, well, from working, running the REIA, I'm talking to different fix and flippers, buy and hold investors, and wholesalers, and I wholesale too, so I have my own pool of buyers, and all the above. I mean, I feel personally off-market deals are the best. Just personally, if you're, competing, if you can get to a seller and you're the only one, you got a much better shot. If it's on the market, those properties are going fast and the values are going a little bit higher. Tired landlords, and we discussed about how investors are liquidating, taking their equity off the table due to increased property taxes and fear of values going down. It's try sell it now before it goes down. So yeah, tired landlords are a great source. I love probate. That's my specialty, my niche. It's a lot more complicated. Obviously, you have to really have empathy with the seller, dealing with the situation. It's just not, I've seen buyers come in and run through the house in 3 minutes and say, I can give you 120, and they're out the door. But probate, they need help. So in my personal investing business, we've taken the time to really know the process in Delaware, so we can, we always stress we're not attorneys, we can't give you legal advice, but we can, help guide them to the right attorneys and give them generic advice that they can find out. But that's what I find.
Now, as we know, I'm a direct private lender, and this is always a question I'll always throw out there. What property? I mean, I know where my appetite is in Delaware right now, but what do you think? What property types are attracting the most serious investor capital right now? Single-family rentals, small multifamily, and to me, small multifamily is 5 unit to 10 unit. Single-family rentals means single-family to 4-family in my space. Value adds, flips, or mixed strategies, maybe like a mixed use, which is kind of like a little oddball stuff. But what's your thoughts, where you think the most investor capital is available right now? Like if you had a great deal, people are going to be clawing at it, giving you money, but where are you seeing that attraction right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one would be single family, and then I would say smaller multifamily, 2 to 4 units. There's just less of it available, and it's a very suburban county, so regulations have limited the amount. I mean, you're just not going to see a lot of multifamily. And then the big ones, that's just not my niche. Those are some real big boys playing in that market. Yeah. And we're seeing tons of big investors who didn't even care about the cap rate. They had money that they wanted to park in a safe investment. Yeah. So I can't compete against that. Value add, always. I mean, if we can force appreciation through renovation, regardless. But single family and smaller 1 to 4 or 2 to 4 units
is really the sweet spot.
Yeah, that's just there's just more of it. Newer investors feel more comfortable with the single family. It's easier to comp. We're not looking at working on cash flow as a variable. It's just fix and sell it.
For the savvier investor, somebody that's done at least 3 to 5 deals in the last 3 years, there's money out there for 94% of the purchase and 100% of the construction, as long as you're buying it based on a solid ARV. I mean, are you finding any problems with comps right now on the back end when you're evaluating your deals in Delaware? Is there enough comps out there for you to kind of bite onto? We talked about that before the podcast.
Yeah, in southern Delaware is more rural, so it's more difficult. Now, one good thing is they've consolidated the MLS. We're a part of Bright. So if you're a licensed realtor, you have access to that, which comes into Jersey, comes into Delaware, and PA, and primarily
there's a bunch of states they're growing. I think they're going to take over a lot of that.
Maryland, it's great.
Yeah.
Years ago, not even that many, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, Sussex County had their own little RIA, and they did not want the people, the Wilmington realtors who had sold a house to a family in Hocasset, and then they're ready to buy a beach house in Bethany Beach. They didn't want those people coming down, so they had their own exclusive RIA to force them to become members. But they've relinquished that, and Sussex joined Bright, so now everybody's got an equal footing. But what we find as far as comps there, you'll see a lot of rural, not a developed neighborhood where, like the neighborhood I grew up in North Wilmington, one builder built every house in 2 or 3 years. There was a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage colonial. There was a 3-bedroom, 1 car, and there was a split level. I mean, we were just comping a neighborhood like that last night with a new investor, and you could do that in your sleep. But if it's on a rural road, and you've got a ranch, and then down the road, 2 miles away, there's a mobile home, and then there's another house. It does make it more challenging, and then does it have sewer? Does it have septic? So I find Newcastle County and the defined neighborhoods a lot easier. In the city of Wilmington, where every block is different, there could be, a triplex here, a duplex. It makes it more challenging, but the suburban defined neighborhoods are a lot easier.
Are you seeing more owner-occupants or investors winning deals, and how should investors compete effectively in 26?
Yeah, it depends on the area. And for example, in North Wilmington, the suburban area where most of the houses were built 50, 60, 70 years ago, defined neighborhoods, it never really saw the foreclosure crisis. We didn't see a lot of foreclosures there. Just great stock of houses, desirable area, so people kept the houses up. So we're not seeing the unbelievable distressed properties or distressed situations as much, and the people kept their houses up. So when they go on the market, it's 50, 60 years old. It was built in 68, 72, but the house still looks fantastic. Brick house from the outside. They've updated the roof. They've updated their heating system, but the kitchen's dated. It's got Formica, and it might have ugly carpet and painting, and the bathrooms still have the old-fashioned tile. And we're seeing retail buyers are okay with that because they're really not. They're buying the outside of the house and they're buying the neighborhood, so they're willing to pay way more than we investors because they can think, well, you know what, in a couple years we'll redo the bathroom, redo the kitchen. So they're being able to pay a lot more as opposed to an investor who has to come in and factor all the different variables, and are. Most of them are going to be doing a full rehab, so we do see deals that'll go that we can't believe what they're going for because they're just clean houses. So it does make it a little bit more difficult in certain areas. Again, other areas where it's more, if the exit strategy is a buy and hold, we're still seeing plenty of good deals that investors are getting.
So what common mistakes do out-of-state investors make when entering the Delaware market, and how can they avoid them?
I think it's nothing specific to Delaware. I think it's the same thing everywhere, is that you really need to know your market and the different niches, what areas are all about. You just can't, for example, we talked about Wilmington, you just can't give a blanket the Wilmington market because we have the city of Wilmington. Inside the city, every block is different. Just like Philly and every other city, there's some great places and some not so great places, and then there's some mediums, and it could change by the block. And then in suburban Wilmington, you still have a Wilmington address, but it's completely different. So knowing the niches, knowing the school districts, obviously, what areas are on the rise, what areas are, working with a good specialist in the area is for out-of-staters, I think, is crucial.
So how has access to capital changed for Delaware investors over the last 12 to 18 months? I mean, deals are getting funded, obviously, and which are struggling? I mean, I could tell you, but maybe I'd love to get your perspective on it. You know what I mean? I already know where the struggle is in Delaware, you know, for capital.
Well, I mean, I'm seeing the single family from talking to other investors are still doing well. I mean, it comes down to your debt service ratio. If you're under 1.2, you're gonna have a tough time.
Okay.
You might find different. I'm seeing deals. People are telling me if they're like 1.6, it's sailing through. For that, I mean, we're looking at for fix and flips. Most of the hard money lenders, for BRRRRs, or you're looking at purchase 75%, for refinance 70. Mm-hmm. This is more your specialty.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to get your perspective. I mean, the only struggle I see in Delaware is the minute it hits a rural designation.
Okay, more
the minute
area,
you're USDA completely.
Yeah.
One, it's not dead, but I think your LTV is going to get cut back.
Yeah.
You're going to be like at 65, maybe max 70%, depending on the caliber of the investor. Like I have one very big investor, not the one that we know, but another one I know personally. I mean, he's buying right from the share sales, and some of those places are, I don't think he knows what he's buying until he gets into the deal and finds out maybe it's a mobile home, or find out it's in USDA or a rural designation, but he's buying them because he's buying them so inexpensively, and he's turning them around to rent right away. So I find that very interesting, because that's the only place we're having a slight rub. But because he's such an active investor, I'll still do the loan, knowing this guy has a lot of experience, and I know he's going to be able to handle it, and I'll be able to sell that paper off. But I'm going to cut him back at 70 maximum. He might even have money stuck in the deal, but typically he's not. He's so light in debt stack on the deal.
Yeah.
But that's the only caveat I find with Delaware right now is the rural.
And that's what I mentioned. In the rural areas, it's more difficult. It's not my specialty. I'm not a fan of. I mean, if you've got a septic system, I mean, they're going to fail automatically after a couple of years, after a certain amount of years. I forget how many. I'm working with a lot of wholesalers. It's almost impossible. Because if the end buyer's got to realize it's going to fail. You can't use that as a contingency, even for retail buyers. And again, you're on a rural road. It's tough to comp because every house is different. You have to expand out. So I agree. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, that's the only caveat I see in Delaware. Everything else, I love all the numbers. I like how it debt services. Mm-hmm. I'm closing approximately 12 loans this month in Delaware. And we're talking like 1.5, 1.6 on DSCR. Now, mind you, I can go down to 0.80. But you really don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But this guy is literally hitting 1.4 to 1.8 on everything, even if he maximizes the LTV, which he's not.
Yeah.
He's not one. He just wants to get his money back. He's not one of those BRRRR strategists who wants to take every last penny out and leave it thin. He's just taking what he's got into it for the most part.
Yeah, I think that's a wise strategy. I mean, the more you take out, it's going to affect your cash flow, and it could put you in a negative position.
And the minute I went up to 75 instead of where he was, which was like 65, we're talking like it's a half a point difference in the rate. Mm-hmm. And the debt service goes from 1.4, 1.5 down to 1.2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's bare minimum. I think you're much more comfortable around 1.5,
and he's a high volume guy. He's buying, like I said, I'm closing on 12 of his properties this month. He's got other stuff that he needs to send me. He's got a whole administrator working on this. For investors to scale in Delaware in 2026, what systems or relationships matter most? Property management, agents, lenders, contractors, or all the above?
Yeah, I mean, that's easy, all the above. I mean, also throw in attorneys. Delaware's an attorney state. Most states are title states. So it's a little bit different. You're not dealing with a title company. We're dealing with closing attorneys. And having a good attorney on your team is excellent. I have multiple ones we're dealing with for, if it's a wholesale deal, some attorneys don't want to deal with it. We're seeing more and more regulation regarding wholesaling, and we could talk about that. Some attorneys have just said, you know what, I'm not dealing with any new wholesalers. They're like, hey, Bob, if you want to take this person under your wing and work with them and make sure they're using the right contracts, contracts and everything and following the okay, but they're just seeing all sorts of problems with that. If I have, some will specialize in series LLCs, which are very big in Delaware. Some will do that. So. That's important, dealing with, having a good realtor, but, obviously, a good attorney, but having good realtors on your team are unbelievably important to help you comping, determining rents, and, that's what I worked, just spoke with a bunch of realtors recently to, review some of these things, but everybody, you need a good team with everybody on there.
I feel like if you're going to scale on any portfolio, the most important conversation you have to have almost on a week-to-week basis is the property management. From what I've seen at DELREIA, there's not as much management as you think in Delaware, or at least viable management. I think there's actually a plentifulness of contractors, because I've met a bunch of them actually at your event. Agents, you got it. Everybody says they're investor friendly. Are they? That's the question of the day. Like, how many investment-related properties have they closed in the last 12 months? And they should be able to tell you that. They should know.
Yeah.
But I agree with you with the attorney and the title. Everything's tied in. You need to have somebody close by. Like I have a title company, but we're not licensed in any of the lawyer states.
Yeah.
Except New York and New Jersey.
Yeah.
Well, they're all lawyer states, but where it's more title favorable than attorney favorable.
One of the things I do like about an attorney state, and that's what I grew up with, so that's all and I do deals in Pennsylvania too, but the attorneys are really looking more at the legal aspects of everything, and I really think they're looking out for you and what's going to happen. And technically the buyer hires the attorney and pays for it. So they're technically representing the buyer, but I've said this to an attorney, he's like, okay, I think of an attorney in Delaware, a real estate attorney. It's not, when I explain this, because a lot of sellers are like, do I need to get my own attorney? I go, well, you can, you're more than welcome to. We're going to be paying that as the closing cost, one of the closing cost fees we're going to pay for the attorney. Mm-hmm. And I like to think of an attorney as almost like a referee in a wrestling match or whatever. They're going to follow the law, follow the contract, and even if the buyer's paying for them, if the buyer's doing something, they're going to make sure that we're following the law and we're following the contract. Look out for all the parties to make sure everything's followed. So they're looking out for you. And if you're doing a lot of closings with them, there's a lot of legal things that you can, if you've built a relationship, that you could follow up on, and reviewing contracts and stuff like that, where a normal title company really can't give that legal advice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you had to give one strategic piece of advice or to investors positioning themselves now for the next 12 to 24 months in Delaware, what would it be and why?
I'm going to say again the same thing about really diving into the markets and understanding the differences and the niches, what areas are increasing, what are flattening out, and knowing, street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood, what actually is going on. You just can't comp a zip code.
Yeah.
And especially in the city of Wilmington, if you're looking for buy and hold properties, you can't, you've got to look at block by block. So really, I would think that's, building, knowing your niche and treating this like a business, not a hobby. And the successful property investors and fix and flippers have systems in place, and this isn't specific to Delaware, but if you're just doing this willy-nilly, you don't have standard operating procedures in place, and you don't have a great team of insurance agents, lenders, attorneys, realtors, property managers, and contractors, I think you're in trouble. One of the things at DELREIA we do is we bring all of those people together. We have a networking session in the beginning that's dedicated to that. I
love that part.
I lock the door. I don't let anybody in because people want to sneak in and sit in this. But all they're doing is sitting in the by themselves, not doing anything.
Exactly.
That doesn't foster networking.
Yeah, no, I love that part.
So
that's the best part of that.
We're knocking the door. I put a sign on here that says, we're not coming in until we're ready. Go meet 3 new people. So, that's one of the keys. Some people ask me, hey, why don't you just do everything online? I really think that we're a networking organization, and I think for this type of organization, meeting people is going to be much better in person. So meeting all those people is what we like to network about.
So what's the game plan for DELREIA over the next 12 months? Where do you see DELREIA going? You have the one main meeting. You're getting strong attendance, strong subject matter. What in Bob's mind? How does he see DELREIA laying out over the next 12 months in Delaware?
Well, I mean, last year we took it over and we didn't. It's difficult to buy an asset or a business from an individual who can show you the books and show you everything and you have questions. It's difficult enough to do that, but to buy something from an estate was very challenging. We didn't have all the information we thought, and some of the information we had was incorrect. So we've been, really last year, just, trying to just get a hold of everything and bring it back. It almost nearly died. So we were in, really crisis mode trying to get everything going. So we switched locations. I've been rebuilding the website, which is super expensive compared to what I thought it would be, but I have a great team that's helping me. And we're just adding value added. Every day I'm thinking, what can I add to members who join our membership? It's very cost effective, $149 a year. You can get a dual membership for where you can have a business partner or a family member for $200. I mean, there's coaching programs that are $20,000 out there. So Mike's goal was to keep this cost effective, hyper focus on Delaware, and have a networking society. Our goal is we used to have subgroups in Kent County, Dover, or Sussex County, some of the towns down there. So I'd like to do that. I keep getting requests for that, but until we're a finely tuned machine in Newcastle County, I'll do.
Why stretch yourself?
Yeah, because I'm going to need help. I'm going to have to have. I can't do it all myself. Mm-hmm. Eventually, I'd love to get our coaching program back, and those are probably the goals that we want to do. I don't know if I'll get all that done this year, but we're where we are today versus where I was when I took over. It's been a dramatic learning curve, and I'm really happy with the progress.
Yeah, I look at everything from a goal-setting perspective by the quarter. When somebody says to me, I set my goals for the year, that's impossible because you don't know what's going to happen in every quarter. You got to look at everything every 4 months. Like doing the Harrisburg event, like I'm doing, I'm giving it 4 months. If it doesn't work in 4 months, I can cancel it. It's not like it's working already. But what I'm saying is like for you can't really go past 4 months because you got to make sure your base is there. You used to have it in Christianity. Now you're having it, at the Chase Center down, which I think is a much better location.
Yeah,
better vibe, all of it. I mean, Kent County, to me, would be probably a big stretch for you. I think maybe the Delaware Beach Shore would make a little more sense maybe on a quarterly basis because you can't have anything down there in the summertime. Nobody's going to be able to get there unless they're already there. You know what I mean? It's got to make sense for Bob and DELREIA to have that expansion. Yeah,
we had some group kind of leaders, so I would definitely need to get that. I still got my own business to run. Yeah. So I mean, I want it to. The main overall goal is to foster a learning experience for new people who want to get involved in investing, and we've seen unbelievable people when we started that have just become rock stars, and we've seen a lot of people that never take any action.
They're out for the night.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate. We see people just keep coming and never do anything. So that kind of frustrates me. I want you to get your value out of it and take action. So that's our long-term goal. And believe me, by doing that, it fosters business relationships, and it comes back to me, building relationships like I built with you. So those are some of the things. I mean, it's not going to be a Fortune 500 company. I want it to pay for itself.
No, you want it to be able to balance the books, and hopefully you squeeze some deals out of it for yourself as an investor.
Yeah, that's building relationships.
Maybe some partnership opportunities or joint ventures.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal from it. So that's our long-term goal.
So how do we reach you to, one, maybe have a one-on-one about DELREIA and working with you, whether a vendor or an investor, how do they reach out to you currently at this point?
Yeah, that's another thing we're getting, which and I wanted to thank you so much for being you've been a long-term member of DELREIA, and now we've started the business affiliate program for companies to come in, and that's the other thing. I'm just thinking, what value add can I add to make it worth your while to get it out? And for our business affiliates, we're allowing to speak at our events, provide information. I am putting us up on all our business affiliates on our website with a link. I'm doing personalized emails out to all of our groups. We have 3 groups, the main DELREIA Facebook group, the Kent County, the Sussex, and I also have a Delaware page. And also, our database emailing out, and because I want to make it worth your while to come back and keep being
I have found a cost benefit already. I mean, I don't know if you know much past with me and Mike, actually. Mike and I was taking personal development courses at Landmark Education here in Philadelphia. I invited Mike as one of my guests, and he went through that entire personal development
I didn't
course.
know
That's
that.
why he was getting more into personal coaching.
Yeah.
Because the influences from, the personal development, and I've seen what you've done since taking over, what was left to what Mike had there, and I really think you're doing a great job. I mean, I extended this invite because I felt like this was a nice add to in building a relationship with you as a vendor.
Yeah.
To your leadership, and and obviously I'm interested in the Delaware shore points as well, and
Absolutely.
if I could be of any assistance, and we're going to get this out to everyone, today or into tomorrow.
This is my second trip here. You invited. I think we came in over the summer.
Yeah.
And I saw you finishing up on your pod, and we had some meetings over there. So I love it. It's a great spot, great location.
Listen, it's a very welcoming environment. We listen. The goal for this podcast, along with the educational events, is just people to come together.
Yeah.
I mean, listen,
absolutely.
everybody has vast opinions, and you know what opinions are like.
You bet.
But here, I feel like that all kind of disappears a little bit, and we put the attitude to the side, and we just have a humbling discussion. And I think that's what we just did. I mean, that to me, I feel like that much more I know about Delaware for an investor, and wow, there's a very concentrated opportunity to work with someone that holds something on a monthly basis in Delaware, which is.
You mentioned how can they reach out to us. Our website is delreia.com, DELREIA. Del for Delaware, and REIA, Real Estate Investors Association.com. You can reach me at admin@delreia.com, or please join our Facebook group. Just search for DELREIA. We have a subgroups again, and we have a Delaware Real Estate Investors Association fan page. But the group is just a really great networking too, because we've got vendors, we've got everybody, attorneys, insurance agents, contractors, investors, wholesale deals coming in, and the best part is like, hey, I've got a rookie, my flat roof is leaking on a house in Wilmington. I need a contractor, and boom, there'll be referrals from people.
Yeah. Very fast.
Better, contractors will say I can do it, but what's better than that is someone saying I used, Joe Smith.
They're tagging somebody.
Yeah. So that's the best way to reach out to me is join our group or go to our website. You can learn about the membership, or we also say come to a meeting. First time guests are free. We hold it the first Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock at the Chase Center on the riverfront in Wilmington. No need to sign up. Just show up, go to the Facebook page, or come and join the website. You can get a free account by just providing your name and email address, and then we'll email you all the information about coming meetings. So that's the best way to learn about us.
Bob, thank you for coming out this morning. This I think is going to go a far way. I think we're going to get out to our distribution. I'm very excited about this, and thank you again. And I want to thank everybody for listening in here at the Creative Burst Strategies podcast. My name is Joe Scarice, co-founder of the podcast. We're here every second Saturday of the month here up in the TCS Property Management Services here, rooftop deck. And then every Sunday morning we have a live event that's national at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, providing an educational subject every Sunday morning. So thank you again for tuning in.
Can I say one more thing?
Go right ahead. Go Eagles.
Go Birds. I want to thank you again for being a big supporter of DELREIA, and I've learned so much from you. It's great great. I love this. So thank you again for having me here, exposing DELREIA.
Yeah.
And we were talking about funny. One other point is, yes, I am a big season Eagles ticket holder. And when we set this date months ago, and then when we found out
we were nervous.
the Eagles were going to be a wild card team, and I was like, oh, fingers crossed. And luckily, the Eagles are playing tomorrow. By the time you see this, we'll have hopefully beaten the 49ers. But thank you so much for having me here.
And if you ever need our services down in Delaware, Yardell and I can always get scheduled out, because I mean 6 o'clock is when Yardell's available. We can come down and we can even feature a couple vendors if you want to do something like that. Do a vendor every a month and do like a quick interview as well.
Love to do that.
If you'd like. I mean, we extend that to you here at the podcast.
If you come down and mention Joe, this video, that would really help Joe and myself know that how this reached out to us.
We'll get it out there. I promise you that.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great day. Enjoy yourself and be well. And thank you.
Thanks.